Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're having an amazing day. Let's get right into the stories. The first one is a pro-revenge story. So my dad is an old amateur radio guy, ham operator, and when I was about 13, 14, my family lived in a crappy duplex while our new house was being built. We had decent neighbors on the other half of the duplex, but every time they went away for the weekend, often, their 18, 20-year-old son would host these huge parties and did not give two ducks about noise complaints. We would call the cops, they would come, turn it down, but the music would get turned up right away when they left. One night it was getting especially out of hand, and the cops never came to deal with it. Late into the night, my dad got up, pulled an old radio of his out of the storage closet. All his gear was packed up since he didn't have the room for it, or his 60-foot antenna tower in this little crap-hole duplex. He pulled about 20 feet of unshielded wire off a roll and started running it out the back of his radio, along the wall, up about 5 feet, back down, across the wall some more, up again, and back down. He knew where the tower speakers were located on the other side of the wall from having coffee with the neighbors. He keyed up the mic, and we could hear the click come through the wall. He then shouted, "Turn that crap down," into the mic, and it came back through the wall louder than I could hear his voice while standing next to him, and about half of "down" is replaced with a loud whoomp noise followed by silence. He cooked the amplifier for their stereo, skipping right past any protection circuits inside it. My dad had an ear-to-ear grin before we had the douchebag son pounding on our door. My dad opened the door, and this kid started throwing punches immediately. We called the cops again, now with an assault report, and suddenly they showed up in minutes. My dad didn't press charges, but the cops made him apologize, and when his parents got home, they made their son pay for the stereo. That was the last party he ever had. The next one is an entitled people story. HOA tries to take my house and sued me. My property is not part of the HOA. I fought them and won. As a homeowner in my neighborhood for over a decade, I had never given much thought to the HOA that oversaw the community. I assumed that since I was receiving annual bills from them for maintenance and landscaping, I must be a member of the HOA. It wasn't until one day when I received a threatening call from the HOA that I realized I was not actually a part of it. Despite my attempts to explain the situation, the HOA continued to demand payment for a year, claiming that my payments were a sign of my willingness to join their association. I knew this was not true, and I refused to pay any further. However, I soon discovered that the HOA was not backing down and was actually taking legal action against me. The notice of the lawsuit came as a shock to me. The HOA had not only sued me for missed payments, but also for foreclosure on my property. I was devastated and scared. I had always believed that I was in the right, but I didn't know how to fight this legal battle. I reached out to other homeowners in the community and discovered that many of them had faced similar issues with the HOA. Some of them had lost their homes due to the HOA's aggressive tactics. I realized that I needed help, and I found a lawyer who was experienced in handling cases like mine. My lawyer and I went to court prepared to fight tooth and nail for my home. The HOA tried to argue that my payments were a sign of my willingness to join their association, but my lawyer pointed out that without my signature on their paperwork, it was invalid. During the court proceeding, I watched as the HOA's case crumbled as my lawyer showed proof that I had repeatedly informed them that I was not a part of the HOA. Despite my initial victory, the HOA was not done yet. They appealed the judge's decision and continued to harass me with threatening letters and calls. The legal battle dragged on for months, and the stress and financial strain were taking a toll on me. At times I wanted to give up, but I knew that I couldn't let the HOA win. I had worked hard for my home, and I wasn't going to let them take it away from me. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the appeals court upheld the lower court's ruling in my favor. However, the HOA still refused to back down. They continued to harass me and even tried to take me back to court. At this point, I was exhausted and didn't know if I could keep fighting. But then, something amazing happened. The local news station picked up my story, and it went viral. I was inundated with messages of support from people all over the country who had faced similar issues with their HOAs. The attention from the media and the public finally forced the HOA to back down. They issued a public apology and reimbursed me for all of the legal fees I had incurred. I was overjoyed and relieved. Finally, after a long and arduous battle, I could move on from this nightmare. Update. Since my victory over the HOA, I have become an advocate for homeowners' rights. I have started a nonprofit organization that helps homeowners who are facing similar issues with their HOAs. Our organization provides legal advice and support to those who need it, and pushes for clearer guidelines and regulations around HOA membership and billing practices. Thanks to the attention my story received, I have been invited to speak at conferences and events around the country to raise awareness of the issues that homeowners face with their HOAs. My victory has given me a new sense of purpose, and I am grateful for the opportunity to help others. In addition, I have continued to fight for stronger regulations around HOAs. I have met with local legislators and pushed for more transparency and accountability from these organizations. I have also worked with other advocacy groups to lobby for changes in state and federal laws that govern HOAs. One of the most rewarding aspects of my advocacy work has been the opportunity to help other homeowners who are going through the same struggles that I went through. I have met with dozens of people who were facing foreclosure and helped them to find legal representation and fight back against their HOAs. It's been incredibly fulfilling to see the positive impact that my story has had on so many others. In the end, I am grateful for the lessons I learned during my battle against the HOA. I now know how important it is to read every document carefully and to understand your rights as a homeowner. I hope that my story inspires others to stand up for themselves and fight back against injustice. As for the HOA that tried to take my home, I am happy to say that they have learned their lesson. They have changed their policies and now have a more transparent and fair system in place for homeowners. While I wish it hadn't taken a legal battle to bring about this change, I am proud to have played a role in making things better for others. The next one is a petty revenge story. My late husband was in a car accident during his senior year in 1986 and got a settlement of $30,000 that he could access at 18. He was a gearhead and wanted to buy a Corvette, but his mom didn't like that idea, so she made him a deal. If he bought the car, he would have to pay rent and storage for his other cars. Alternatively, he could buy property and stay home rent-free for as long as he wanted. At 18, we started looking at property and he bought 10 acres for $5,000. We intended to build there at some point or sell it later on. In the early years, we would have massive parties. There was no one around to bother us and it was great. Eventually, people bought and built on the lots around us, and zoning laws changed to allow one house per acre. So there were several houses, but it was still rural, and a few of us had large empty acreage the kids would use to ride their dirt bikes. We didn't care. Let them have fun. About 15 years ago, another new house went up right on the property line. They hadn't even finished constructing the house when the wife began calling to demand I take some trees down because they blocked her view. The funny thing was, the view they blocked was from the RV they were living in. Once they moved into the house, they wouldn't even be near those trees, so I said, "Sorry, but no, I'm not cutting the trees." She wasn't happy and over the next couple of years called to complain about all sorts of stupid things, including the noise of the kids on dirt bikes. Hell, she even got mad at people riding their horses because they made her dogs bark. One spring day, I drove out there and noticed that the stream that ran across my property and theirs had been dammed on my land and diverted about 50 yards from their property line, which sent it along the dirt road that went down a hill and up the other side, creating a pond where it was blocked and another at the bottom of the road, preventing me from accessing the majority of the property. Now I knew it was their doing because the previous fall-winter she had called to complain my stream was causing her property to flood. First off, it wasn't my stream, and her property didn't flood. In wetter months, the stream naturally got larger, flowed down the hill, and kept to its banks for decades. Their lot was originally heavily wooded, and they had cleared all of the trees. I could tell they had done a bunch of grading, so if they had water issues, that's their doing, not mine. Anyway, I went home and the following weekend we grabbed the small backhoe and a couple of friends to unblock the stream. We hadn't even unloaded it before we heard her screaming and the cops showed up. They were unsure if they should stop us because our state is pretty environmentally conscious, and there are strict wetland laws. The cops didn't know if we were rerouting the stream or if they had. I completely understand where they are coming from, and I knew this could happen, so not only did I bring pictures to show how the stream had been, but one of our friends was an official at the DOE. He was able to explain the law and that we legally needed to put the stream back. We couldn't do much about the pond, except wait for it to dry out, but we sent the stream back down its original channel. Of course, when it got to their freshly graded land, it had no channel to follow, and it did flood their yard. Unfortunately for them, there happened to be that DEO official who felt it was his duty to issue them a citation for diverting and illegally altering the stream. They ended up having to put the stream bed back and revegetate with native plants and shrubs in a 25-foot buffer zone, which took away a portion of their yard, pay us damages, and got a huge fine. As the spring and summer progressed, the kids on dirt bikes discovered the pond. By this time it was 18 inches deep, and they were loving riding through it. So instead of just riding through there, they spent hours in that area, much to the annoyance of the neighbor. She called the police multiple times, but the kids would either be gone or say they had permission to be there. So the police called us and we said, "Yup, let them ride." Now we did have concerns about liability if they got hurt, but we liked pissing her off, so we took the risk. Not the best idea, and thank God no one ever did that we knew about. A couple of years go by, she has learned to text because we ignored her calls when she has something to complain about. I make my annual spring visit and notice there are 23 large cedar and fir trees cut down. 5 have been cut up, and a path leads directly to their very full woodshed. I was pissed. This isn't something I can just fix, and you don't mess with my trees. I called the police, and their excuse was that firewood was their sole source of heat, and they needed the wood. They cut down so many so it would dry out over the next couple of years. They got another no trespassing order, the stream one had expired, and charged with theft and vandalism. It took a couple of years, but they ended up having to pay $10,000 for each tree they cut down. So that was nice. Plus we sold 15 of the trees and made another $45,000. They were pissed, to say the least. Life goes on, and we still got texts every time she heard a dirt bike, horse goes by, or whatever irritated her on any given day. We started having summer campout parties over the next few years, and she always called the police or fire department. Of course, we never got cited because we are not stupid and didn't break any laws. Sadly, my husband died suddenly, and eventually I decided it was time to sell because I wasn't going to build a house there. So I listed the property for $1 million, which was the market rate at the time. Remember, it was 10 acres and you can build one house per acre. Of course, anytime people went out there, she would flag them down and tell them it flooded and all sorts of nonsense. She didn't want anyone to build or be there. I should have renewed the second trespass order, but it expired right around the time my husband passed, and it just wasn't important at that moment. Developers were not bothered, and we did get a few offers under ask I was happy with, but I really wanted to sell it to an individual who wanted to build a single home, just being stupid and sentimental. My agent wasn't happy, but understood LOL. One day he calls me with an offer that is much less than any of the others, and they wanted to do an owner-carried contract for 3 years with a balloon payment to pay me off at the end of the 3 years. It's a couple who wanted to meet me out there. I didn't have anything going on the upcoming Saturday, so I said I would meet them with the understanding that I really wasn't interested in carrying the contract, and the price was too low. We figured they were hoping to change my mind, and we were hoping they would come in with a better offer, LOL. They got there before me, and when I arrived, the woman was there telling them how bad the property is. I parked on the main road and was walking in, so none of them even knew I was there. As I approached, 2 little kids came flying up on dirt bikes. She came unglued, grabbed a rock, and threw it at them. Came nowhere close to hitting them. The guy immediately starts yelling at her and tells her to get the duck out of there. It scares her, and she left. He sees me and begins to apologize, but I stopped that and thanked him. We start talking, and he explained part of the reason they wanted this specific property was that they had 2 young boys who rode motocross, and he loved the trails. Plus, he wanted to build a track for them. When he showed me where, I knew he was my buyer. I took a $250,000 loss on the sale and carried that contract just to spite that woman. While that is a huge sum, remember we paid $5,000 for it and got almost $300,000 for the trees and another $20,000 for the nonsense with the stream, plus enjoyed the property for almost 30 years, and I got the interest on the contract and the balloon payment, so it wasn't like we really lost out. Plus, knowing the woman was going to be miserable for years to come, you just can't put a price on that. I sold it 6 years ago, and I still go out a couple of times a year just to check it out. They have built a beautiful house at the farthest point from the woman, and there is a huge track up by her place. She still sends me nasty texts, and I should probably block her, but it makes me smile each time knowing she is still pissed. Well worth the loss, and I know my late husband would approve. He always knew I was a petty idiot. The next one is an entitled people story. Okay, this needs a whole history of context. My sister, 56F, and I, 48F, have always had a rocky relationship. Her husband, 61M, and my husband, 50M, are brothers, so we've always had that distinct closeness. Due to poverty, I only graduated from a 2-year course. My husband is the successful one in the whole family, basically. He graduated from college with a Bachelor of Science in Marine Engineering degree and is now a chief engineer. He works overseas while I manage a small store at home. Meanwhile, my sister and her husband didn't graduate. Their source of income has always been from selling fruit shakes in front of schools. It wasn't a steady income, but their daily needs were still met. Since my husband and I have the capacity to help, I've asked him to help my relatives. He agreed, and now we've financed the education of more than 10 people, relatives, neighbors' children, people we hire as help. Aside from that, we've also helped my sister's family with everything we can, even on demand. Back in 1999, I was pregnant with my first child. We used to live in a small town far from the nearest hospital, which was kilometers away in a city. So my husband and I decided to move into the city to be near basic commodities like schools, hospitals, and markets. There were markets and schools in the small town, by the way. The city just has better accommodations. My sister was livid when I told her the news of us, just me since my husband's overseas, moving to the city. She reasoned that what about her family? Their income wouldn't let them survive that long. She already had her 5th child then. I was so stressed, and weeks passed by that I forgot it was the 9th month of my pregnancy. On December 6th, I hurried to the hospital. My friend already agreed that I'd be staying in their house for now. The next day, my first child was born. I asked my cousin and my friend to fetch my belongings from the house because I'd already decided to move to the city for my baby. When my friend and cousin went to the house and fetched my clothes, my sister went on a tantrum. She threw all my clothes outside and said, "I hope she died at birth." I was devastated, of course, when I heard that, but life went on, and I forgave her for that. Years later, I already had my second child. My sister's second child was about to go to college, so I financed her education. She wasn't able to finish college because of her choices. I brushed that off despite having to buy the things she needed for her school. Years later, her third child was ready to go to college. Now, this is where things started to go down south. My niece, let's call her Rihanna, 32F, during her second year in college, started to date. She was a lesbian and started dating this girl a few blocks from our house. By the way, we moved to another city still close to our hometown. My niece lived with us during this time. I was pregnant with the third child. Little did I know my niece would go out at night, leaving the gate open. She would go clubbing with her girlfriend. I only found this out when my cousin told me that the gate was open one night. I scolded her about this. This was also the time when I found out about her relationship. I told her it was fine that she started dating, but I want her to focus on her studies, which means her girlfriend can't be in the house to be a distraction, and she can't go clubbing either. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I called her mother, but instead of apologizing to me, she got angry and told me to get off my niece's love life. She can do whatever she wants. I was offended, of course. What if she gets into trouble? What if she gets hurt? Who would be accountable for this? Me. We had months of quarrel over this. My niece graduated. Around 2013 to 2014, I found out I had breast cancer. I was devastated, of course. I had surgery and went to chemotherapy. During this time, another one of my BIL had a medical emergency. While I was in chemo, I also helped him with his disease. I don't know exactly the reason why, but my sister's husband gathered his brothers and sister, not including my husband, and plotted something against me. I heard that my BIL actually said verbatim, when he found out I got out of surgery, "So, is she dead?" I don't know what they were plotting. They invited me to come, but I didn't go. All I know is that they think I'm hogging my husband's money for myself. Yes, you've read that right. They said as siblings, they have rights to my husband's paycheck, which, by the way, goes to our joint account. This whole scenario just dug the hole deeper. Okay, let's condense this and enumerate the things that have transpired over the years. I financed my sister's fourth daughter's college education, where she got pregnant and married a man we don't know. Her mother defended her. My first son is going to college, and since I don't want him to go alone in a city away from me, I hired my sister to help her nephew for a weekly $55 salary. Rihanna saw this as me making her mother a help or some kind of servant. She went on a rant on social media. This led to another fight between me and my sister, and then again, I forgave them. My terminally ill file was in my sister's care when Rihanna posted on Facebook asking for help, hinting that my file's children, despite being engineers and professionals, aren't helping. My husband got offended, and so did I, since we financed my FIL's medicines, and they were asking for an oxygen tank, which was scarce at the time because of COVID-19. At that point, I had enough. I had enough of their demands. I had enough of their bickering. I just had enough. So the last time my sister and I spoke, I told her to never contact me again, and if a rift between us is what they want, I will give it to them. I said that our relationship as sisters is severed, and I don't want anything to do with them. My sister got offended by this and lectured me about family values and whatnot. Till now, I still haven't talked to her or her family. I did still speak to my BILs and CIL, but only for a brief moment. The next one is an entitled parent story. Tea's supposed to be the most wonderful time of the year, but for me and my family it was ruined by my brother's wife, EM, 34. My wife and I have always had a strained relationship with EM due to her tendency to be controlling and demanding, not just with us, but with our entire family. It has caused a lot of tension and discomfort in the past. We had a family Christmas gathering where we organized a gift exchange for the kids. My 7-year-old son was over the moon when he received a brand new Nintendo Switch as his gift. He was so excited to play it, but EM saw the gift and immediately decided that her child, EK, an 8-year-old, deserved the console more than my son, stating that she couldn't afford to buy such an expensive gift for EK during the holiday season. EM proceeded to try to take the Nintendo Switch away from my son, right in front of the Christmas tree, even though it was clearly labeled with my son's name. She was insisting and causing a scene, accusing me of being a bad parent because she wasn't able to afford such a nice gift for her son and we should give him one instead. Despite other family members' attempts to reason with her and make her understand that her actions were wrong, she refused to listen and kept trying to take the gift away from my son. My son began crying and screaming, but she didn't care. All this happened in about 2 minutes before EM stormed off screaming about how everyone hates her and how she is better off without us. It was a terrible experience watching my son's excitement turn into disappointment and tears. The entitled behavior of EM not only ruined the gift opening moment, but also the entire Christmas gathering for all of us. Family members expressed their disappointment and disapproval of her actions, but she didn't care, and it seemed like all that mattered to her was getting what she wanted, no matter the cost. Her actions only served to further damage the already strained relationship between her and our family, proving that her selfish behavior knows no bounds, and that she can't even keep her entitlement in check during the holiday season. Our entire family has completely severed ties with her since Christmas, and despite her trying to reach out to apologize, I can't justify having her as a part of our life anymore. Our relationship was never great to begin with, and to me, this was the final straw. My son will always remember this Christmas as the one where his aunt tried to steal his gift. Thank you for watching. I would really appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. We'll see you again tomorrow.